suicide.
President Trump met with Sisi on Monday, meeting with King Abdullah of Jordan on Wednesday at the White House, saying they're not raising the issue of human rights anymore. Your thoughts on this, and then also, of course, Israel-Palestine?
Well, raising the issue of human rights it means something, but not very much, because take, say, Saudi Arabia, one of the worst human rights violators in the world. It's our darling. They pour weapons in. Obama sold them more weapons than I think any predecessor. Sisi is particularly disgraceful. His dictatorship has driven Egypt into some of its worst days. The United States kind of supported him, but not openly and vigorously the way Trump is doing. Trump is, it's a little bit like what you said about the cabinet. It's kind of like a parody of what goes on all the time. Usual thing is to support brutal dictators, but not with enthusiasm and with some tapping on the wrist saying, look, what you're doing is not very nice, and so on. Here it's saying, you're great, we love you, go ahead and torture and murder people. It's a terrible blow to the people of Egypt. But Jordan's a sort of a mixed story, but these steps are very regressive with regard to Israel-Palestine. Actually, Trump has pulled back from his original position, but his original position that he and his administration was that there's nothing wrong with the settlements. They're not an obstacle to peace. If you look at the way the settlements have been treated over the years, of course they're totally illegal. They're destroying any hope for Palestinian rights. There's a systematic Israeli program, very systematic. It's been going on since 1967. It's to try to quietly take over every part of the West Bank that is of any value to them, while excluding the areas of Palestinian population concentration. So they're not going to take over Nablus or Tulkar, but take over everything that's of significance and value, leave dozens, maybe even hundreds of isolated enclaves and Palestinian population concentrations, which can kind of rot on the vine. Maybe the people will leave, whatever happens, we don't care. That's been going on consistently. Now, if you go back to about 1980, the U.S. joined the world not only in calling them illegal, but in demanding that they be dismantled. Go back to the UN Security Council resolutions, I think 465 approximately. So you have to dismantle the illegal settlements. That has been weakened over the years. Under
now
Reagan,
you have David Friedman, the U.S. ambassador to Israel, who's been approved, right, who raised money for the settlements. Yeah, and you have Jared Kushner in charge of the policy.
Reagan weakened it, Clinton weakened it, Obama cut it back to not obstacles to peace. Trump, it's not helpful to peace. Meanwhile, we fund the Kushner Foundation, and of course this new ambassador are strong supporters of the ultra-right, far-right, way to the right of Netanyahu. The Bethel, the community that they're pouring their money into, is run by an Orthodox rabbi whose position is that the army shouldn't follow orders, has to follow the rabbi's orders. This is way at the right end of the Israeli spectrum. Originally, they said they were going to move the embassy to Jerusalem. They're kind of backing off on that. At first, the position was there's nothing wrong with settlements. Now there's a mild, they're not helpful to peace. But meanwhile, the U.S. continues to pour money and support into fulfilling this project of constructing a greater Israel. I should say that the general discussions about this, I think, are extremely misleading. What's said on all sides, actually, Israel, Palestinians, international commentary, is that there are two options. Either a two-state settlement in accord with the long-standing international consensus, or else one state, which would be an apartheid state. in which Palestinians wouldn't have rights, and you could have an anti-apartheid struggle, and Israel would face what's called the demographic problem, too many non-Jews in a Jewish state. But those are not the two options. There's a third option, the one that is actually being implemented, namely construction of a greater Israel, which will not have a demographic problem because they're excluding the areas of dense Palestinian population, and they're removing Palestinians slowly from the areas they expect to take over. So you'll get what's called Jerusalem is maybe 5 times as big as it ever has been. It goes all the way into the West Bank. There are corridors going to the east, which break up the remaining territory. One to Ma'ale Adumim town, which was built mostly during the Clinton years, which pretty much bifurcates the West Bank. There's others to the north. The so-called Area C, where Israel has total control. About 60% of the West Bank is slowly being incorporated into Israel with big infrastructure programs and so on. And this program is just taking place right before our eyes. The United States is providing diplomatic, economic, military support for it. It'll leave the Palestinians with essentially nothing. There'll be a greater Israel, which will not face the dread demographic problem.
Professor Noam Chomsky, we'll be back with him in 30 seconds.